Hello artists! I'm here today to talk to you a little bit more about printmaking. So our next unit we are shifting gears and we are going to be creating prints. And I'm going to tell you all about it. We will be making greeting cards, so you can see here is a couple examples. They're not cut out yet, but we are going to be using a printing block, carving it out, and learning about reduction and relief printing. So first things first, you are going to get four pieces of paper, and you're going to fold this in half the hot dog way. I call it the hot dog way because it looks like a hot dog bun. And then you're gonna fold it in half the hamburger way. And then you are going to bring those two sides into the center and fold that. So you'll end up with 8 sections on your paper. And this will give you 4 greeting cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, once everything is cut out. But we won't need to cut everything out right away. We're just gonna work with the full-size sheets of paper. So once you do this to 4 sheets of paper, you will come out with 16 total prints. So that's the setup for the paper. When we shift gears into printmaking, we are going to be using a variety of tools. We are going to be using a water-soluble printing ink here. And then we are going to be using, this is a carving block. This is what we'll be printing with. The carving block is called, it's a Battleship Gray lino cutting block, and it's really flexible and fairly easy to use. We use these carving tools. There's 4 different sizes, so based on the color, you'll notice there are different size ends, and some of these get a little loose, so you gotta make sure you tighten them up, but there'll be 4 different ends. So just be mindful of that when you're grabbing a carving tool for your block, because you might want to use a thinner end for some of those finer details like I have here in the center of my flower, and then I used a bigger end here for some of the bigger leaves. Now I am going to go into the printing demo later, but I just want to go over some carving safety rules. When we're carving, we want to be working on a guard, and there's some wooden guards here. This helps keep our lino block in place. And so when we're carving, we're going to be carving outward. We never want to carve into our body. We want to carve away from our body, and it kind of holds this block in place. So you should use a guard when you are carving. Now I created this this first print, and you can see here I have an example. We're going to be doing 3 layers of our printing block. So as we think about our drawing, as we start this, here's an example with all 3 on one page. We need to create a drawing of a flower, any flower of your choice, but we want it to have 3 steps or 3 carvings. So the first step is just going to be the outline or a contour line of a flower. So it's pretty basic, and that is what you see here. That's what I first carved. And then I pulled 16 prints. Next, I carved what you see in step number 2. I carved out these, what you see in red here. And that was after I pulled all 16 of my first prints here. So I did this first, I pulled those prints, and then I went back to the printing plate and I carved in some more, and I started adding these details in red here. So I carved those details out second. And then I printed on just 12 instead of 16. I subtracted 4. I picked my best 4 of my solid one, and then I printed over that. And then finally, I did a 3rd carving, and I added all the details. So more is better when you're pulling prints, because once you start carving in that 2nd and 3rd layer, you can't go back. So that is why I'm having you pull 16 to start, because we'll have a good amount of prints for number 1, and then you'll see I'll talk more in class about what we're going to do with these. So let's show you a demonstration on how to carve. All right, we're just gonna put this aside. So this is the block I did with the first set of prints. I'm gonna do the same pattern just so you can see. And I am also, I wanna print in a different order with my colors because I was kind of disappointed once I got to my printing that you couldn't see the leaves as well. So I think when I'm pulling my prints, my number 2 color is gonna be the green, and then my number 3 color, I'm gonna inverse it. I'm gonna do the blue instead. So we can see how that looks in difference, makes a difference to see if those green leaves pop out. And these are things that you'll discover and you'll learn as you go along with your project. That's just one of those discoveries I learned as I was pulling my prints, and I thought, oh, this would look better in green. So that's why I'm doing a second set here. So let's look at number 1. We're just going to first do the contour line, and we are going to go around, and I'm just going to make a circle in the middle. I'm using a pen. You probably want to use a pencil because I've discovered that if the pen kind of leaves some marks, but this is all I have with me right now. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to draw my flower, my contour, just the outline. And yours, there's so many different varieties of flowers that you can pick whatever type of flower you want. It's up to you. So it doesn't have to be just like mine. Just go on Google, do a search, and find out what kind of flower you want to do. But as you're sketching your designs, you want to think about how you're going to create 3 different pulls from this printing block. So we have this contour drawing. Now I'm going to take my tool, and I like the number pink. It's kind of like the next size up from the blue. I feel like it goes blue, pink, green, and then yellow for size. I'm going to take my pink, and I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to use this block as a guard, and I'm going to just take, and I like, when I'm making a circle, I like to dig in, and once you experience this and you feel the pressure, you'll know. But I like to turn my block as I'm going and just keep my hand here stationary, and I'm moving that block and turning it around. I'm not putting too much pressure because I don't want to have a lot of tension to where it's gonna snap up at me, and you'll understand that when you start working with this material. But I just want to turn and have my hand stationary. I'm not moving this hand, I'm just turning the block. And what happens is this guides this into a really good circle, you guys. It's really a good circle. Better than you could probably draw freehand, just keeping that hand stationary. And I'm carving out that line. And I'm kind of curving a little bit as I go. Watching my hand here, I don't want to accidentally have my hand in front of here and slip, so we want to be very safe while we're carving. Just turning this, we're coming to the end, and done. And now we have that circle. You can see where my pen, why I said you probably shouldn't use a pen, because you'll see that and it might transfer into the print, but it'll be okay for this demo purpose. Now the same thing, now I'm going to, I'm going to keep kind of curving, but I won't go all the way around. I'm just going to kind of curve that block, keeping my hand still, but kind of curving it a little bit and carving. And I'm moving my wrist, just like that. And we're gonna curve, I'm gonna curve this, or I'm gonna do this all the way around. As I go. And you can see here, I'm kind of curving my wrist now, turning the plate as I go and moving that. My suggestion to you before you start carving, if you're new to this, is to use the back side of the plate. This is a recycled plate, but just go and put your initials, try to put your initials in the back side of the plate so you can experience that carve on the tool before you actually go to make your printing plate. So you get a little experience with the material before you actually start carving. Then your name will be on your printing plate and we'll know whose is whose. Alrighty. Last carve. So the contour, the very first one, is very fast because we're just doing the outline. So there I have it. The first step, we're doing this. Now what I want to do is I am going to think about my first color that I want to print with. So we're going to set the printing block aside. You're going to go and you're going to get your supplies, and you are going to use what is called a brayer. This is a roller that we use to spread the ink over the plate. We call this a brayer. And you're going to pick out your color of ink. I'm going to still go with pink for my first color. I found that that one worked well. So I'm going to take a popsicle stick here, and when you get these inks, they might be a little thick. If yours seems a little too thick, come get me. They are water soluble, so I can add just a little bit of water and thin them out, but you kind of want a good consistency, so you want to mix it around with a popsicle stick just to get it all mixed together, and you want it to drizzle, kind of like that. You see it's thick, but it's still drizzly, like a caramel almost. That's the consistency that you want your printing ink to be. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to scoop some out onto my printing plate at the top of my plate. And you don't need very much. You can always come back for more. I'd rather you use less and not waste and pile this on. You see, I just took one little scoop and spread it across my paper, and that's probably all the ink that I will need for this whole pull of pulling 16 prints. So now with the brayer, you want to dip it in, and just initially dip, check and see, did that ink go across that whole brayer? If it did, now I'm going to roll this out in one direction, and then I'm going to roll it out in another direction, and we do this so that we can cover the whole brayer. Now you see there's some parts of the brayer that haven't got covered in ink. So we're going to continue to roll in one direction and then the other direction, back and forth, until you hear that clicky noise. You know you got a good spread. If you're using too much ink, you won't hear this noise. You won't hear that. So you just need a little dab and then roll it back and forth this way and this way so we have an even coat across our brayer. Now what I like to do is I like to have a notebook handy or a magazine, an old magazine, and I like to use that as my cleaning work surface to roll on, because sometimes you'll roll off the block and you'll hit the paper, and then your work surface is clean and you don't have to clean up as much later. So I'm just going to take and I'm going to roll across my printing plate just like I did with the foam. Roll this across here, and see, I just went off the edge. That's great that I have this notebook behind me. So I'm going to cover all the edges of my printing plate. When we pull prints, we're making greeting cards, remember? So we need these to fold over, and we're going to cut them out. They'll be able to open so you can write a little note. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we're only printing in the far right boxes of the sheet. And I'll have the example on the board so you can just double check. But we're going to print here, 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 and here so that we can fold those cards later. So it doesn't matter which one you start as long as you remember you're printing in these 4 blocks only, leaving this blank. If it helps you, put your name or initials like created by down below here to sign your name, if that helps you remember which ones not to print in. So now you're just going to take your block and you're going to try to center it as best you can inside that square that's folded. And I use the back of my palm and I kind of press this in really good and hard. Think of it like a rubber stamp. You want to put equal pressure all over the plate so you get a good pull. And my table is squeaky, so excuse that. So there, we have our first print. You see what I'm saying, where we can kind of see that ink come through from the pen? That's why I suggest doing it in pencil and trying to make sure you go right over your drawing lines when you're carving so you don't have that. So I'm going to do this 4 more times here. Actually, on this sheet, I'm going to do it 3 more times, and then I'm going to do this on all 4 pieces of paper. So you're going to end up pulling 16 of these prints with just the flower, or with just the contour line. So what I'm going to do here after I pull this second print is I am going to pause the video. I am going to come back here, transition back, and I will show you what to do next. There's our second pull. That one was a lot better. See, you will notice depending on how much pressure and how much ink you put on your plate, there'll be a difference in the pull quality. You see a lot of white in the background and there's less white here. So those are things to be mindful of. So I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna get all my prints pulled, and we're gonna show you what to do next. Hello artists, I am back. So I pulled my 16 mono prints. We call them mono prints because it is a single color. So I've pulled my 16 prints here and placed them on the front of each of the greeting cards. So we're just going to put some of these aside here. And now we're gonna go on to the second carving. What you didn't see is I had cleaned my plate off, I had cleaned off my brayer and roller, and now I'm starting fresh. So I'm gonna set these aside, and now I wanna look at my drawing, my sketch. So you should all have a sketch of your 3 steps. So we did step 1, now we're on to step 2. I'm gonna look at my drawing and I'm gonna figure out, okay, what did I add here? So I added a circle ring on the outside, but now looking at this, I don't have a lot of room on the outside, so I'm gonna make an executive decision and I am going to do a circle on the inside. So I'm just gonna draw and sketch this out, and we're gonna need our guard again. So you want to have that under you before you start carving. But I'm just going to draw out my my next design. I'm just gonna go around that circle lightly. We're gonna draw the line. So we got that circle, and then I kind of created a center of the flower and almost like a cobweb design on the inside there. So I did a couple little designs here. So we're just gonna get this drawn out. And then I had some lines going to the center here and then I had a couple little accents on the petals. I probably didn't need to draw some of these lines. I'm not gonna finish drawing some of those lines. I can just carve those. So the center detail is really small. So I'm gonna get the smallest one, which is the blue one, and I am going to start by carving out that center. And what I found is if I put the little notch right in the center and I just turn my block, I can dig out a pretty decent little circle by just turning my block and keeping my carving tool stationary. So it just carves out a nice little circle like that. So there's a tip or trick to get little circles. And now I'm gonna go around again the same way I did before. Is I'll turn my block, keep my tool stationary, and kind of carve this. And now I've noticed this blue tool doesn't carve as nice as that pink tool. So I might have to put in a little bit of effort here and try to carve around this as easily as I can. Turning the block isn't working for me as easy as the pink one was, so you'll get a feel depending on how sharp your tool is and what works for you. So we're gonna speed up the video now as I carve this out, so we take as least amount of time out of your work time as possible. So go ahead and enjoy it. So now you see I have step 2 completed. I had originally we are building up our design by using a reduction method in the printing plate. We're taking away each step. So now we're gonna pull this print and it's gonna look a little different. Before we pull this second print, we are going to take a look at our designs, or our already pre-printed cards. And I want you to go and lightly with the pencil, go through and look at all of your pulls, all of your first prints that you pulled, and pick out which one stands out to you as the best. So you're gonna pick 4, and I'm just gonna lightly with my pencil, because I'm gonna later erase this, just so I have a visual marker so I don't accidentally print over it. You're gonna pick 4 that you think look the best, and you wanna save those. So just take a look and see which ones you like the best. Maybe I'll do this one. So I have 1, 2, 3. And they can be on the same paper. And it might get tricky. Don't spend too much time overthinking and over analyzing which 4 you want the best. Just choose which ones you like. Okay, I think I'm gonna do this one. So we're gonna keep those 4 pink. We're not gonna print over the top of those. Now, I'm pulling these prints a second time. For my first set of prints that I pulled with this printing plate, I noticed that if you look here, like I said before, the leaves didn't pop out as much. So because I used this such dark blue as my second pull, I'm gonna switch those around. I'm gonna switch the green and the blue around. So now green is gonna be my second, and this will inverse. This will be, the outline of the leaves will now be green, and then the blue will be what you see for green here on my third pull. I just wanna see how much contrast that might give in a different try here. And you'll learn and discover that you should lay your lightest color down first and build up to that darker color. So pink was my lighter of the 3, and so I started with pink. Now I have my green ink here, gonna do the same. We want it to click. So we're gonna get that ink on that plate, or on that roller, I'm sorry, the brayer. I'm gonna cover that whole brayer with ink. So that should be good. Now we're gonna take our second carving here, and roll over the top. You got good coverage. Now this part can get tricky because we want to line it up as best as we can with the edge. Notice here I have put an arrow. I forgot to mention that in the first pull. I had put the arrow at the top so I had all my flowers facing the same way, and I want it pointing to the top of the page so that I know when I come back to print, I'm printing in the right direction, and this will overlay and line up really well. So if it's a little offset, that's okay, but just try to line it up as best you can. Press down. So now this is going to cover up everything except for what we have carved. Now I noticed that the ink didn't cover everything, and it might be because I don't have enough ink on my plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit more ink on here because this kind of got dried out. It's been sitting a little while. You probably won't have this issue. Just going to scoop a little bit more ink out. And don't need too much, just to get some fresh ink here. So I'm going to dab this down. You'll start to discover and notice how much ink you need on the roller. And you'll also notice if it starts to dry out on your printing block too fast. If you don't work fast enough, you will have a difference in pulls. So let's see if this one works a little bit better. Making sure I'm covering all the area. Come back here. So the only one I'm saving on this sheet is this one, so I'm going to print out these 3. Line it up as best I can. Sometimes it helps if you stand up and put a little pressure from your palm. You will find a rhythm that works for you. We're gonna peel that up. Oh, much better. You can't see much of that pink in the background anymore, but we still see the pink showing up. And we have the great white outline of the flower still. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do this on all of the remaining prints that I didn't mark, and we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. All right, we're back. I have printed all of my second color, which was the green, and I went through and I marked which ones that I wanted to keep without printing the third color over. So I marked again 4, just like we did with the first color. Marked 4 prints that I want to set aside and not print over the top. So now we're on to our third color and our third carving. So if we look at our sheet, we did for step 1 and step 2, and now in a different color I had drawn the third carving. And I did this drawing intentionally so that not only you could see the change in color on the sheet, but it's also helpful as a visual for you as you go. So I really suggest, and actually I'm going to require you to do a 3-step drawing with the 3 steps of carvings for your reduction print. So now we're gonna look here. I added some leaves and some little accents, and I actually added even more like these little curved lines to my other printing plate, and I'm gonna do the same for this just because it fills that background. So the first step we did the contour, the outline of the flower. The second step we did the carving of the inside of the flower, and now our focus is on the background. So I added some leaves, so I'm just going to take my pen again and I'm going to draw in some of those leaves that I want in the background. We'll just quickly sketch this, and I kind of have some of those little, what do you call them? We're just adding some of that detail in there. So, and this can change as you carve. Just quick get an idea of a sketch down. Like I said, use pencil if you can. All right. And then I added little circles, and I noticed on here I didn't really like my sketch. So if you, as you're sketching these out and you don't like something about it, change it. You have the opportunity to change it from your design. So I did the little circles right here, and then we have one here, and then this is where I just kind of carved, or I did the curved lines. And I don't necessarily need to go all the way and then sketch all those. I can just do those with the carving tool. Just get the base idea down on your print. You have your drawing to reference as well. So I'm going to take and I'm going to start carving out my leaves using that shield so it has something to go into. Protecting my hands, not putting my hands up by where I'm carving, keeping them towards the back of the printing plate while I'm holding that printing plate in place. Okay. And my design is a radial design. We're looking at radial balance here because we're working from the center, and my design is coming out, and everything is radiating from the center. So it's called radial balance. Think about that as you're creating your design and how you might want to show radial balance. I think that's good. So I'm just gonna clean up my work surface here, and we're gonna start pulling our third and final prints from our printing block. So do you see here now we have 2 blocks, and now once you've carved, you can't go back. These are forever but one and only copies of your prints. That's why we're saving 4 of each, so that we can see that progression and that build up. But now I can never go back and create the same print ever again. It's going to always be changing when we're doing the reduction method. So I'm just gonna start, and I'm gonna go through, I had marked a couple, and we are going to print this instead, in addition to all of our others. But you know the drill from here. We want to hear that tacky sound on the printing plate. Our roller is completely covered. And you're going to go through, and for the remaining prints that don't have little marks, the ones that you didn't save, you're going to go through and you're going to print over the top of those. I'm going to fast forward now. Enjoy the show. And we'll come back and we'll see our final results at the end here. Hello artists, we are back. So I finished pulling all of my prints, and I just wanted to show you the difference depending on the layer, like which layer of ink you put down first and how big of a difference it can make. So for the latest prints that you've been watching, I put the green down second, and then I put the turquoise down third, and that's what it looks like here. But in the first round I did of prints, I put the turquoise down second and I put the green down third, and you can notice the significant difference of that overall print and the feel and the way it looks. So keep that in mind as you're pulling your prints and what colors you want to use. I personally like this turquoise a little bit better because it shows the leaves that are green, but either one is beautiful. So just wanted to show you that difference. Now, up next, what you're going to do, you have all of your prints. They are dried and they are ready to go on to our next steps. We have all of our prints. We have our 4 base with our contour that is pink. Then we have 4 that have just the turquoise over the top, and then we have the 4 that have the green. So, and the remaining that have the green. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to cut out all of our cards. But we want to keep in mind that we are going to be mounting some of these prints. So not everything is going to turn into cards. So I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to get all these cut out, and then I'm going to tell you what we have to look for next. So I'm going to get all these cut out, and I'll be right back. All right, I am back. I have trimmed all of my cards. So, and I made 3 different piles. The first was just the contour. Then we have our duo print and our tri print. So now what I want you to do is I want you to look through your piles, and I want you to find your best for each group. So I'm gonna look at my 4 pinks, and I'm gonna find the one that I feel is the best overall. And I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna set that aside and put these 3 off in a separate pile. I'm gonna look at these and I'm gonna find which one I like best for my 4 prints for the, and I think this one I like the best, so I'll pull that aside. And then we have a little bit more for our final one. The best and the worst. And we have 4 of the worst and 3 of the best. These are set aside. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 greeting cards that you will end up being able to use as greeting cards. So these leftover ones, those are yours to use as greeting cards. We are going to be mounting our best and our worst, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do to mount these. For our best, so I would like everyone to trim around so there is a white border around our 3 best prints. So you're gonna you can go to the paper cutter to get it straight, and you're just gonna line this up as best as you can to create a white border all the way around. So I'm gonna trim these. And because if your print is kind of off-centered or off-kilter, you'll notice that the white border is a little off. That's okay. Just want a little bit of contrast there. Okay? So you're gonna trim those down so you have 3 with a little bit of a border. Black piece of sulfite paper, and you're gonna put them in the order that you pulled the prints. We're gonna line them up. So that was first, this was second, and this was third. And you're gonna take a glue stick, and you want to measure this out so these are centered. You want this to look nice and finished. So go through and with a ruler, measure out to the middle and mount these as centered as possible as you can with a glue stick. I'm not going to do that now, I'm not going to waste your time, but that is our next step. So that is our best print. These will be mounted. Moving on. All right, I'm back. I'm back with the 4 worst prints that I pulled out. From here now, we are going to make these better. The greatest thing about art is you can take something that you're not 100% pleased with, and you can add to it and create a little bit more visual interest, and who knows, you might come back to it and think, oh wow, that turned out really cool. So everybody will have a set of oil pastels, and I want you to just go through and I want you to create some accents with oil pastel. You can do whatever you want to this to create some visual interest. So go through with your oil pastels and just play around. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but maybe I want to add some details in here now. Kind of like Warhol did. He went over some of his work. And we're going to do this for all of the prints. All of our worst prints. We're going to go through all 4 and we're going to add oil pastel details to create something new. All right, I have added all of the oil colors, the oil pastels, to my worst prints, and guys, I'm so excited because these worst prints are now my favorite prints. So what you're gonna do next is you are going to mount these prints on another black piece of paper as centered as possible as you can with a glue stick. We're gonna get them mounted, and you're gonna have two final prints that will be hung up in the hall. You'll have this one, and then you're gonna have your first one that you mounted, and this one will be showing the different steps. So let me know if you have questions, but that is it. That is what our printmaking unit will look like. Hope you all enjoy it and have a wonderful day.